Hi, and welcome back. In this video, we are going to go over error handling in Go and the error type. If you go open Visual Studio Code and open up deck.go from the last video, in our new deck from file function, we made a call to the read file function in the IOUtil package. And if you look here, this function has two return types, a byte slice and an error. And at first, we just ignored that error return variable. So to start off this video, we will add the error check um, when reading the file from our computer using this read file function. So I'll remove this underscore and then type in a variable name. I'm just going to call it ERR for error. And then we'll do if error does not equal nil, that means something happened, that an error occurred, whether it be the file doesn't exist, there's no file with that name, there's a bad path, or whatever it may be. So if there's an error, I'm just going to do fmt.println and whoops, what did I just do? Okay, error reading from file. Otherwise, there was no error and we'll just return the deck. So if there is an error here, we'll print this and we don't go in the else here, and then down here I'll just return nil. So if there is no error, we go into the else block and we'll return the deck that was read from the file. But if there is an error, we'll print this line here, and it doesn't go in the else block, and it'll just return nil. So our function would return nothing. So save that, and we will run it in the command down here. Go run deck.go, and there's no issues, so everything works out fine. Let's see if we can create a situation where there is an issue. So the file is called test file. Now if I change this name from test file to, let's say something else, let me comment this out, and let's say random file. Let's see what happens now. You can see we get an issue. Error reading from file, right here. So we know an error happened. So that's how we know that it's working. Now, oops, forgot first. I'm trying to fix everything back. All right, let me close this file out now. All right. Actually, let me double check I saved that, just so when I push it to GitHub, you guys will have that update. Okay, good. Let's see. Good. Now, that error return type is a special variable. It's a type. It's actually an interface. Now, let's go over the Go packages really quick. And just go into any package that will support a return that error. So we'll just go here. So if you look at this, if you click on error here, it will show you that error is a type. It's the type that is user defined, like how we created our deck type. But it's also an interface here, meaning that any type that satisfies the error interface would also be considered an error type. And I will go more in depth in a future video on what interface means, but if you programmed in Java before, it's kind of similar. You have an interface class, and then if you want to use that interface, you have to implement all the functions inside that interface. So here, we can create our own custom error type. And to do that, you just need to satisfy this error interface. So our type just needs to have a function called error that returns a string. So let's write a code example to help us visualize this better. Let's see. Okay, so package name. Oh, I just created a new Go file and I just called it errorhandle.go. So create a new Go file and put it in whatever directory you want. So package main, then import fmt with some console prints. And then here I will create our error type. I'm just going to call it my custom error. And it will be a string. And now function main. And I'm going to create a function called add to positive numbers. Number 1. The first parameter will be called number 1, and it'll be an int32, and the second parameter will be number 2, which is also int32. So in a little comment here, function returns the addition of two positive numbers. Simple enough. Trivial. But if number 1 or number 2 is negative, we will return an error in our function. So for the return type here, we have two return types. We have the addition value, or the sum of number 1 and 2, and an error. So now, if number 1 is less than 0, or number 2 is less than 0, then we want to return our custom error. So create an error. We'll create a variable called ERR. That's a type of my custom error that we define up here. And we'll give it the string value of error invalid arguments. Remember, our custom string, our custom error right here is pretty much just a string. So we can assign it a string value. And then we will return 0 and our error. That's if one or both of the parameters here, number 1 or number 2, is less than 0. Otherwise, well, we don't need anything else here. Otherwise, we'll return number 1 plus number 2 and nil, because there is no error. Okay, yeah, see. As you can see, our custom error can't be used here as the return type. Because here I said that it returns an error type, but ERR is a my custom error type and not an error type. So to do that, we need to satisfy the error interface here. Because once this is satisfied, my custom error type would also be considered an error type. So to do that, I just need to create a function called error that returns a string. So that's simple. I just go down here and create a function called error, and then I need to make this a receiver function. So I'm going to call it this using my custom error, and then it has to return a string. So if you look at the function, the interface function here, it's called error and it returns a string, which is what I did. The function is called error and it returns a string, and it's associated to this type, my custom error. So since my custom error type implements this function in the error interface, my custom error is now considered an error type as well. So in the function, I'm just going to return this casted. So now I should have no issues. Yep, now Go does not tell me that there's an issue here. So if I call this function with number 1 and 2, it will check to see that they're both positive. if one or both are negative, we will return 0 for the sum and we'll return an error, our custom error. But if both numbers are positive, we'll just turn the sum of number 1 and number 2 and nil for the error because there is no error. So to test it, we can create two variables here, result and error, and give it the value of the function call here, and we'll do 3 and 19, and then we'll check if there's an error. So if error equals nil, that means we know something is wrong. Then we'll do fmt.print line, and we'll just print. Oh no, if error equals nil, we know that it worked fine, that there is no error. Sorry, correction there. So if error equals nil, there is no error, we'll print the result of the addition. Otherwise, there is an error, and we will just print whatever error message is there in our error variable. So now if we run this, let me go to the correct directory here. Error handling, go run error handle.go. And you can see 22 gets printed because that's 3 plus 19, those no issues. Now let's create a scenario where there is an issue. So now I will assign it the function, the return of the function call add two positive numbers, but I will pass one of the values as -1 because that's negative, and then 10. And this time it should have an error. So if error equals nil, that means there is no error. We want to, actually I'm just going to copy and paste this while I type this again. Now let's run it. As you can see, the first situation is still fine, 3 plus 19, those are both positive, we get 22. But as you can see in the second scenario here, we passed the first argument as -1. So now there is an error, so we print whatever error was returned in our error variable, and it says error invalid arguments, which is what I set it to return over here. So that's how you create your own custom error. You just have to satisfy the error interface. Like I said, I'll go more into depth about interfaces in a future video, probably 2 or 3 videos in from now. Now, there's another way you can also create your own error, and that's just to use the new function and the errors package. So let's go over to Go Docs really quick and take a look at the error package. Let's go back to the packages and look for error. Right here, errors package. And if you go in the errors package, you'll see that it has a function called new. And what this function does is just returns an error that formats as the given text. So calling this function will return an error type for us. So instead of going through all of this stuff of creating our own custom error and then having to satisfy the interface and whatnot, you can just use the new function in the errors package. To show how we can do that, we will pretty much replicate the scenario here. Actually, now let's do a different example. So let's say your code fetches a repository from somewhere. Then if there's an error doing that, we want to, let the user know that an error happened. So we can create an error variable called ERR. Actually, that's already defined up here, so we'll just call this new ERR here. And we'll assign it the error variable returned from calling the new function errors package. So package name is errors, and then we're calling the new function inside that package. Typo here, errors.new. Oh my gosh, I can't type today. Okay, and then it just takes a string for the text. So since I said our error is for not being able to find a repo, I'll just put the string as failed to find repository. So let's check this. Let's just see what happens here. If error does not, if new error does not equal nil, which doesn't equal nil because it has that string value. fmt dot println new error. And we'll do this, and as you can see, failed to find repo is printed. So you could have done it this way if you wanted to. So instead of like writing this up here and then this line here, you could have just wrote var error equals errors.new and then pass in this string. So you could have done that. I'm just showing you two ways you can do it. So in this video, we went over error handling in Go, how to create your own custom error type, satisfying the error interface, or using just the new function in the errors package. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how we can test our code in Go. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.